What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Long Box Sessions. I'm your host, Alex Dandino.
And I'm Josh Griffey.
As always, catch us on all your socials. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're everywhere. And of course, if you're looking at us right now, it means that you have told a friend as well as you yourself watching us on YouTube at the Nerd Alchemists, plural, with an S.
It's just a good move. It's a smart move. Might as well get your sex appeal in, both audibly and visually. Hi. Woo!
Oh my God. All right, that's enough of that. Sweet, sweet business.
I think I'm all revved up. I watched the Ric Flair Nature Boy documentary today.
You know, it's interesting.
I'll tell you something that is so strange. This is so strange, and I know you don't partake. Since calamity has descended upon our society, right?
Yes.
This real world horror show that we're watching every day, we can't have large gatherings anymore, right? So my son now has gotten really into pro wrestling, both of my sons, right? Like my 2-year-old even comes up and he goes, Cecina, and starts waving his hand in front of his face. I'm like, good Lord, what is that? Their uncle got him into it, right?
Right.
So they're like, Dad, let's watch more pro wrestling. I was like, yeah, I love that shit a long time ago. So now we're all hooked on pro wrestling. And they've had to move the shows to this small performance center they have in Florida with no audiences. And I'm telling you for a fact, Alex, I see your face. And I know you don't like pro wrestling. But
I
go
like
watch
pro wrestling. It's more just fascinating to me because it's such a thing that thrives on live.
Exactly my point. Go
theater.
back and watch like the last 2 or 3 SmackDowns since they're not allowed to have people in the arena. And it's just it is this weird kabuki theater of the mind where there are just these giant men like yelling and fighting in like really weird tempos, and it's so weird to watch and hear like everything they're saying and doing when the match it's the fucking they're saying WrestleMania is going to have no human beings there, a show that thrives on the spectacle of 90,000 fans, and they're just going to do it in like a garage.
I mean,
like, sir, I'm telling you, it struck me
that's really
as
taking
a
it back.
kick in the
taking
nuts.
it back to its original impetus.
I mean, worse than that, though. Worse than like this is community theater gone awry. Like community theater, but with like a laser light show and a bad DJ. It's insanity. But it really struck me. You're like, next Sunday, me and my sons will be watching WrestleMania.
Right.
A silent, quiet, no one in attendance WrestleMania. And it was one of those things, like there are some things that strike you as, wow, this is really weirder than the everyday life. But watching pro wrestling without an audience is one of the most haunting things I've experienced during this pandemic.
Interesting.
It's a thing that we love, right? This kind of unifying, hey, this is really dumb, but we all get some jollies out of it, right?
Right.
It's wrestling becomes so dumb and over the top and theatrical. I don't think anyone watches it say like the competition. It's fun. It's just fun, goofy morality tales, right?
Right.
And now you're taking out the element that like kind of mask a lot of it. And it is, I was like, oh man, like we are so close to the abyss all the time, as I've learned from watching wrestling. But it just struck me. I was like, man, like a lot of shit has changed. I mean, like little things are changing, and it just makes these enormous shifts, dude.
Well, yeah. I mean, like I'm sitting here thinking. I mean, just today, like it's interesting. Like, so we're in week 3 in Los Angeles. I mean, I guess I am. I'm in week 3 of the beginning of week 3 of like my lockdown. Like we're essentially it's called safe at home. So the idea is that they want us to stay in our houses and only leave if we're going to go to the grocery store, the drugstore. Like we can take walks still. So like the first week this went down, it was just a bunch of jackasses going to like the hike, like the Runyon Canyon shit. And like everybody's
they're
there.
like, sweet vacation.
Yeah. Everyone's like, oh, cool. It's vacation. We're like, no, assholes. This is like serious. Second week, everything's getting a little quieter, a little eerie. This weekend, apparently, Los Angeles did a very good job staying home, except for these jackasses at the Brentwood farmers market. Couldn't help but get their artisanal cheeses.
Well, so they're like, I have to Instagram my life or people will think I'm dead back in my home state.
Oh,
right?
my God.
And it's like, guys, Instagram filters are not the same as these medical masks.
But But it's interesting because like
oh god, that's a good
my
Instagram
wife and
joke.
I, because we're both home, like, hey, we don't have the babysitter. We have a babysitter because we both work. So we're both home. We're both watching the kid. And we realize like we really need like a system in place to basically like say, hey, this is our life right now. So let's like get on board with it. So essentially like we're like making schedules. Like I'm saying like we're planning out our like dinners for the week and all kinds of shit that we totally intended to do. Like there's just these little things that are slowly changing our lives. It's pretty fascinating, if I'm being honest.
I am essentially living as one of the chain-smoking, underpaid zookeepers in Tiger King. That is probably the hygienic equivalence of where I'm at right now.
Oh my god, dude, Tiger King! Wow, that shit is just like, it's amazing. Like when you think about it, the fact that it exists is otherworldly.
Isn't that insane, right? That Tiger King just drops the moment. Because we were talking about this today, right? Just these, like, what are the things that, like, you desperately need right now, right? Because I think it's weird. I've gotten to the point where you're like, I don't want to watch a movie. Like, I've watched so many movies in the last 3 weeks.
Right.
Like, I'm watching, like, it feels like I'm watching, like, 4 or 5 movies a day.
Right.
Because I'm on that weird sleep schedule. I stay up really late, and my kids wake me up really early, and somewhere in the middle of the day, I can catch, like, an hour and a half nap when my kids nap.
Right.
So I just am up a lot. And I told you, it's gotten to the point, like, I have this weird, like, restless body thing where I can't fall asleep anymore. So I'm like, I'm watching so many movies. Like, when I turn on my apps, I just go, ugh. Like, I'm repulsed at the thought of watching other stuff, even if it's good stuff. Like, even for our other podcast, Film Alchemist, like, we had to watch Peeping Tom and M, 2 of my all-time favorite movies. But even, it was hard to even press the button because I was like, fuck movies. You know what I mean? And it's insane. Like, but that's
oh no, I get it. I mean, like the thing that's crazy, like I think about like Andrea and I had like we got yelled at by friends because we hadn't finished Tiger King. I'm like,
you know who else didn't finish Tiger King? The creative team. They're just like, hey, Tiger King ended and everyone got away with it except for the one guy.
That's another pod. But like we literally were like 4 episodes in and I was like, we got to like savor this because this is great. It's like,
it's all you're getting.
Like we got to keep this spread out. And finally, like we're like, can't do it. So we watched like 3 episodes in a row because we're just like, we got to finish this thing because we're too in it. So
I will say this. I felt like if America 2020 was a scene of TV, right? It is definitely when Joe Exotic gets attacked in the cage. He's just like, you fucking bitch. I'll fucking kill you. Right? He came in 2019. He's like, we survived it. It's over. It'll be better. And then he gets in the cage and that tiger starts getting his fucking Forrest Gump leg. Fuck. And he's like, I'll fucking brain you. I honest though, I gotta say, I was impressed with Joe Exotic's facilities. I was like, they've lost one arm? Like, do you see the way that guy walks around and is, like, behaving? And, like, essentially their debt is one arm?
I mean, it's more to
seriously, they're like, oh, there's a grave with, like, 5 tigers. I'm like, I figured there'd be a grave with 40 meth addicts. Like, it's crazy if they have not had, like, massive casualties at that place.
Right. I mean, like, this is, like, it's just so weird, man. Honestly, like the story itself is shocking. Like that. I mean, that goes. I mean, Carol totally did it.
Carol definitely did it.
Like 100% did it.
Yeah. You know how Thanos definitely did it? So did Carol. Carol is the Thanos of older bad husbands. She snapped that motherfucker out of existence.
Well, there's other, like, I was actually talking to my brother because my brother was the one who told us to watch it. And I was like, Carol definitely did. He goes, did she? Or do you think the guy, because he said, like, the guy was like, the friend of his was like, if I pull this off, best thing. Like,
what he was talking about? Divorcing murderous Carol.
Divorcing his murderous wife.
Because here's the thing.
He definitely got murdered.
A super rich guy who liked to womanize, right? You think he's just straight up going to leave America without telling anyone or without his vast fortune and assets? Like, why would that guy leave behind millions and millions of dollars? If he's going on a South American pussy voyage, you know what would help? Millions and millions of dollars.
I mean,
it's crazy.
It's bananas, man.
If that guy still existed, he would be watching this on Netflix and be like, wow, I should send a postcard, I guess. Get the fuck out of here. That guy got murdered.
So short of Tiger King and our general schedule, how are you holding up?
It's weird, man. Because
your wife's still going because she's a nurse.
Yeah, it's really scary in that regard that every day my wife comes home, we're just like, fuck. Because she's still working at a hospital. I think she's a little less at risk because she's working at a NICU. Right. But like at least one, if not more, of her coworkers tested positive. Fuck. My next door neighbor tested positive. She's a nurse practitioner, so and I think this is what it happens, right? It's just fucking scary not knowing anything, right?
Yeah.
We're two guys that live for fantasy worlds, right? I think we both pretty hardcore try to abstain from reality a lot, if that's the way to say it. And this is the first time in my life I'm like, I just need a deluge of cold hard facts because I know nothing and it's scary and no one's telling. Like my Dungeons and Dragons game, my one of my best friends who's in our game, he's a doctor and he's self-isolating in his own home, like won't even be around his wife and kids for a while. So we were playing Dungeons and Dragons on Skype the other day. I was like, man, this is fucking weird. And so yeah, that's what, you know. I can't find a respite. Like I'm so sick of. No. And it's weird because if this were a normal, I probably haven't spent an enormous amount extra inside of my house than I normally would, if I'm being 100% honest. But yeah, I think it's the weird. Time has no meaning. Days have no meaning.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's been the big thing for us, like trying to get a schedule going. Like we are now like being really cautious about, like we were just talking about, like being really cautious about like. Every other night, we are either gonna read or we watch TV, and like we have to be like really specific. And like we also have an 11-month-old who's like learning how to walk, which has been a horrifying. I mean, wonderful, by the way. Like it's amazing to see. And then like 5 seconds after that, it's horrifying because you're like, oh my god, we have to do like full court press.
Are you going to Kathy Bates, your 11-month-old, misery style? Is that what you're confessing on the pod?
Yeah, I might have to hobble my kid simply so I can get some sleep. You know,
get over here, Hank.
Like it's that, but I mean, but it is like the little thing. Like I do.
Here, let me ask you this. This is another thing that's hit me. I can't enjoy any stories right now. Because I feel like everything I've been watching or whatever has this weird bringing me back to the tear outside my door reality.
Right.
Like some of them are much more obvious, right? Like I had a DC deceased, right? Deceased, right? I had that as a Christmas gift. And I was like, I don't know why I haven't picked this up yet. I'd pick it up. It's like, oh, the anti-life question is like the 28 days later rabies zombie thing. And everyone's killing their loved ones and Earth's dying. I was like... this fucking sucks. Like, to be honest, I like this sucks right now. The art is great. The writing's pretty good. And I was like, but this fucking sucks. I'm not enjoying my time. Right? Like, we were talking. We've been doing some serial killer movies for Film Alchemist. When I watched Zodiac, all I could think about was this shit. Like, Zodiac looming over the California area is this unseen killer. I was like, fuck, that's exactly what we're going there. So, I mean, that's the problem. The only thing that didn't make me think of coronavirus was Tiger King.
Yes.
Because you're like, that whole screen is so filthy. Every frame of it, you're like, eh.
Well, I mean, to me, I was like, if anybody's going to survive this, it's these people. Like, they are filthy.
100%. Those are the people that live through everything.
Right. They'll never die.
All those kids that were having butt-licking orgies in Florida and Texas, they'll all be fine.
They'll be fine.
Those people always make it.
Well, that's been sort of the weird, I don't know, like I actually, Evan gave me House of X. So I've been like reading through that and it's really good. Like I don't get excited about X-Men books because I'm like, anytime someone's like, oh, you know, you should read this X-Men book. I'm like, yeah, I haven't read X-Men in like 3 years. And if I start now, like I'll just be upset that I missed like 4 years of X-Men.
Well, X-Men after a long run is the worst because you're like, all right, my friend wants me to start here. How much am I going to have to read before I can
How much
understand
do I
what's
have to
happening
read? So
here?
like House of X is really interesting. House of X is really interesting because it does sort of start in a different location. Like it starts at sort of a better starting point, so I was willing to jump in. And there is this sort of weird like prevailing optimism through this because it's like basically Professor X has figured out how to like annex the entirety of mutantdom to like its own island where no one can fuck with them. And not only that, they also like are proprietors of like the 3 leading drugs in the world. And you're like, oh, that's cool. Like, good. Like we're
What is
finally
this, like an
seeing
alt-right fever dream? First off, we get our own island. We get our own money.
Well, it's like finally, like it's like Jonathan Hickman has like read like 40 years of X-Men. He's like, you know what? I'm so fucking tired of everyone being like, the X-Men will never be dominant. It's like, fuck that. These guys are dominant for sure. And it's like finally, like anyone who's read it like us is like, God, dude, like X-Men are so much cooler than humans. Please, just like put them at the top of the food chain already. And that's pretty much what this book is.
If this has taught me anything, this pandemic, is that everything is cooler than humans.
Yeah,
Literally. I was texting my brother this because he is like, this shit's like the cold. Like we've been self-isolating with friends. I was like, dude, I don't think you're doing this right. And he's really young, but I was like, you're really smart. Like he's one of the smartest guys I know. And he's saying things to me that I think, according to my wife and Dr. Friend, are not smart. And I was like, fuck, imagine the rest of us dummies just running around out here. But like I read on Twitter, some lady's like, you guys really like are losing your mind being trapped in the comfort of your own homes for 2 weeks, but like you think 10 years for a drug offense is not a big deal. And so all this has taught me, I was thinking about this because everyone's tweeting about Walking Dead and they're like, oh, The Walking Dead is back and it's good. I'm like, no, never. But it made me think. I was texting my brother and I was like, let's say zombie apocalypse broke out based on what we've seen from our handling of Corona. Right. 1 month before every American's dead outside of Joe Exotic's facility. Like, do any of us actually make it in a zombie apocalypse?
I mean, no, not according to this. Like, I actually okay, it's
we are so weak as a society. It made me really sad. Like, the amount of people. There are neighbors I have, not to like name names, but I'm still seeing them just like walking around and talking to other neighbors, and like I saw their kids playing, and I was like, guys, if we can't even like try a little harder when it's like our kids, like Jesus Christ, I feel like we're weak.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting you bring this up because I thought about that. I was actually like 2 nights ago, I was locking the door to our house. I'm like, what if like, look, let's just say this whole thing where everyone's like, it's nothing. It's just like kind of like the flu, blah, 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 blah. What if it like actually mutates into something worse? Or like, what if we do like
you're a hypochondriac for those of you who don't know Alex. Oh, yeah. He's a massive hypochondriac.
So like my immediate, like my inflection point, by the way, for like diseases and stuff like that is like, I don't know, 10 steps ahead of the rest of you.
Yeah.
So like anytime you're like, oh, I have a cough, my immediate is like, I might have throat cancer. Like that's the first thing I think of. So
the nicest thing, I found out I was diabetic at the age of 28. So it kind of took the pressure off of like, hey, how would you survive a zombie apocalypse? And I'm like, I wouldn't. Like day one, I'm just going to eat Oreos and be happy until I die 1 hour later. Like, I can't survive an apocalypse because there aren't going to be insulin needles everywhere. So I was like, if there's an apocalypse, it's kind of the weird thing. Like, once you take yourself out of the equation, right? You're like, oh, I'm diabetic. I'll be dead really fast. So I'm probably just going to go out happy. Like, I'll try to find the world has ended orgy and drug party. And then be like, hey, I'm crashing a little bit. Let's go ahead and just Pop-Tart myself to death right here. Like, that was a good night of raging. And so that's like, the farthest I get into an apocalypse, right? Wife,
so
kids,
I was,
be damned.
I was locking up my house, and I was locking the door, and I was like, this wouldn't be enough if like, because it was right after I'd read that article about that guy who had like just taken malaria medication and died like an idiot. Sorry if that's someone.
Well, because it's not. He didn't take real malaria medicine, by the way. He took something that he got at a pet store that goes in aquariums, I believe.
Right. So okay, let's say it was like, so I just say I didn't read the article. I was simply like, oh, guy died from malaria medicine. I'm like, well, that sucks. Like I send people on the road for my job all the time. Like I've made people take malaria medicine before. It's part of the deal. You don't like automatically die from taking it without showing. Like
we don't buy malaria medicine in a pet store. PSA.
But either way, like I started thinking about like the very beginning of I Am Legend when they were talking about like they use like the measles vaccine or the measles, like an active culture of the measles to cure cancer. And that's what turns everyone like fucking rabid. So I'm like, okay, so what if we all take like, what if people start taking malaria pills and all of a sudden they just like this thing mutates and turns them all into zombies? I'm like, all I'm doing is locking my front door. Yeah, Jesus Christ, I got a glass sliding door in the back of this. Like,
again, it gets to the point, though, where, again, because I am now outside of the apocalypse team. Like, I can't be on your apocalypse team. I'm going to be dead really fast, right? It's a fact. If this thing goes belly up, the Griff has ran his race. It's over for me, right? Like, that's a fact of nature. Once you take yourself out, though, there are two questions you always ask yourself, which is, one, I was like, man, people can't stay inside for, let's say the government came out now and said, hey, man, 6 months. First off, non-essential people stay home. We learned that almost all of us are non-essential in this world, right?
Right. Which, by the way, we've already found out.
I already had people talking. They're like, you know, my vibe here in Indiana feels like people are going to be trying to get out and enjoy the weather pretty soon. Right. So, like, I was like, fuck, man. Like, we don't even know what this is, and we can't take it seriously enough to lock ourselves indoors for 6 months with more entertainment and access to information than any humans who've ever lived. We would never fucking survive a real apocalypse, first off. Secondly, right. Alex, I ask you, what's the point of fighting to, like, survive an apocalypse?
I mean...
Like, do you ever watch Walking Dead and you're like, yeah, I would just quit. Like, I'd be done. The first time a zombie ate my newborn baby, I'd quit.
Well, that's sort of the gift of being human, I guess. Like, we always... I mean... I'll hang on. Let me rephrase that. This is like an distinctly American thing. Like,
there we go.
Americans in general believe that things will work out. Like, they'll be like, you know what? Eventually, it'll be okay. Like, we live in that bubble, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Like, if anything, that brings us hope and a lot of perseverance, and that's a good thing.
Good quality.
But that in and of itself is like kind of the thing is like. The people in the story, like the people within the universe of The Walking Dead, are like the most eternal optimists of all time. It's like
that's a weird way to read it, but yeah, okay.
But that's what it is. Like, it's eternal optimism to think like, oh, eventually this will work out. Like
they never address it on that show, but you're like, I can only go like 3 days with the same jeans and underwear where like the elastic's not tight anymore. There's sweat and odors. Like, I can't shower. And it's occasionally like, oh, well, people find new lovers. And I'm like, without showering?
Disgusting.
As it's like, that show, and I'm not a germophobic person per se, but if you go watch like the first 2 or 3 seasons of Walking Dead, you're like, no, stop.
Absolutely not.
Out. Like, what are you fighting for?
The fact that people had sex before there was toilet paper literally disgusts me on every
Yeah,
level.
I don't know how any of us are here when they're like, the king's having his once-a-year shower. By the way, he's plowing 10 maidens a day.
10 maidens a day, not cleaning his butt, just
well, I'm like, you could
and
drop your nuts in, like, a water bowl next to the bed every morning.
Anything.
Not enough. But yeah, I don't know how people... I watch these apocalypse movies, and I'm just... Like, even Mad Max, I was like, even if I was, let's say, the lactation king.
Right.
In Fury Road. You're like, is that really something I'm going to, like, drive around furiously fighting to keep? Like, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe once you're pulled out of the delusion of, like, what you do to survive an apocalypse. Like, my favorite fantasy of all time is the Lord of the Flies delusion. Where I'm like, let's say, like, I used to do this in high school, which I don't think you should say out loud. If they had known this in the 90s, I probably would have been in jail. But you used to sit in high school class, you'd be like, all right, this class, we all end up on an island. Who am I killing for supremacy? Who am I forming alliances with? Who will we be breeding with? Right? You're like, I'm restarting the island society. And that's how I would, like, pass a Spanish class, right?
Right.
It's like, Lord of the Flies scenario, how's Griff getting out? Now I'm just like, well, you're diabetic, so you're not. You're dead.
Right.
And it's not as fun anymore. It's not. So now you watch these shows, and I'm just like, ugh. I don't know.
I mean,
that's cool.
That's like the main. Finding things that like make me happy is like the main thing now. Like besides, like, look, luckily I'm still working. Like I'm one of the few. Like I'm lucky. Like there's just stuff that I have to get done, so I'm still working. So besides like work during the day, besides like my wife, my kid, and like some stuff I do, like I have to find other things to preoccupy my time. So like for instance, I started learning how to letter because I said I wanted to do it. So I'm learning how to letter. I downloaded a program. I'm learning how things work, like just learning general graphic design stuff. I'm reading a lot more books than I normally have time for, which is great. Like that's what I should be doing anyways. But like, it's just a matter of like parceling out the things that actually bring me joy. And as far as like watching stuff, like this is the weirdest thing. Our kid all of a sudden is really into Yo Gabba Gabba. So we're watching Yo Gabba Gabba and like watching Yo Gabba Gabba and Mark Mothersbaugh pops up every once in a while to like draw a picture. And I'm like, holy shit, it's Mark Mothersbaugh. Like there's these like little things, but like I see my kid and he's just ecstatic. He's just like, he's jumping up and down to that little baby dance when like it's stuff like that I see. And if I think about like in the context of The Walking Dead, I'm like, I guess if I saw that and I was like dealing with like the zombie apocalypse and like a horde coming near me, but like my kid was like bouncing up and down or like walking, I'd be like, all right, there's something worthwhile. Like that's like the eternal optimism of like an American living through stuff like this right now.
Interesting.
I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but like that is.
No, I like it though. I mean, I think all of us have that in a weird way. Like,
totally.
This is sending a lot of us down a nihilistic path, right? Where you're just like, what is the point of any of this, right? Like, I've been grappling with that a lot this week. Like, what's the point of any of this? Like, why suffer at all in general? Like, what is the value? Like, when I come out the other side, like, am I really gonna fight to be the best Griff I can be and like, make this all worth it? And I think that's the hard part is. And maybe it's because of, the stories we're imbibing, is that it teaches us, right at that moment you feel like you're going to break. If you make it 5 pages more, you'll come out the other side, man. So
I mean, that's exactly
I like that.
what it is.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's a little optimism that's been, force fed to us for so long that now it's settling in.
Well, I mean, yeah, like you have to find the silver lining somewhere. Like I was talking to you, like I was thinking about like topics to do, and I was like, what's like little like there's so much uncertainty going on in our lives right now. Like the thing that like we were talking about it, like you were talking about at the top of the show, is like I just need facts. I just need to know. Yeah. So like I was trying to think to myself, like, what are things that I know for certain? Like I know that I feel for certain are truisms that I know I can hold on to as we like dive deep into the abyss of just stuff that I have no idea. So like I was thinking about like, what do I know? Like, I know that when I pick up a Batman book afterwards, I will have at least read more Batman. I will have a Batman story in the back of my head, and I'll be able to think about that and ponder on it. Right. I know that if I pick up like a Mark Waid Superman book, 9 times out of 10, that is a hopeful story, and I'm going to finish it going, man, I think that is a really inspirational moment of Superman, I'll always find that in a Superman story. I don't know.
Yeah, I had a weird one this week when I was reading Deceased. There's a scene where they almost got me to imagine a world where I read a Robin taking the mantle forever and being okay with that.
Wow.
I know.
This book sounds like it's
I don't think it's the most
fave.
Astoundingly written piece. It's Tom Taylor, who's a very good writer.
Very good.
But this one is just like, I don't feel like I ever got all the way there, but there are some really good emotional moments, right?
Right.
And I think that is the funny thing is I was like, man, I'm really emotionally invested in these like guys who run around in their underwear. Like really hyper emotionally invested in these stories.
Unfortunately, emotionally invested in like a lot of this.
There were like 5 or 6 moments, because essentially, I don't know if you know what that book is, but it's the anti-life equation run amok.
Right.
And no one can be saved is kind of the theory of the book. Like once you're caught, you're fucking done. Right. And there were probably like 6 moments where I got like all fucking weepy. I was like, wow. It's like, wow. Yeah. And that was a weird one though. I was like, I was this close to being like, maybe he should replace Bruce and it would be cool. And then I was like, no. I was like, no, that's the claustrophobia talking. No. So I don't know, man. I'm in the opposite where I'm like, man, I feel like I don't know anything anymore. Just open this bitch
I don't,
up.
but like I know that there are some just psychological imperatives I have to have in my life to know that things are going to be okay. Like, yes, like anything could happen at a moment's notice, but I know that I at least read a good book after, at some point this week, like I'm honestly like, this is weird. Like, I mean, it's not weird for me, but I started rereading Mr. Miracle just because the book does give me a lot of like solace.
See, he's got a big scene in Deceased. You would love it.
Yeah.
You would actually really like that, I think.
What, the Mr. Miracle stuff?
No, the Deceased, right? If you're reading it as like a big event book,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it really reaches that interesting of a potentiality for what it could have been.
Right.
But it really nails home these kind of like small emotional beats that all these DC characters have had for a long time. And Mr. Miracle has one of the better ones. I think you would love it.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I've been reading that just because, again, like we have the kids. So I think that's been the main prevailing thing of like, because you and I are both pretty dark people. Like, we can take it to some pretty horrible places. I'll say that
you're a real Pugsley Adam looking bitch.
Like our kid's a year old at the end of next month or the end of April, and like I have noticed that like the ability I have to like let the darkness in.
Oh yeah.
Has been lessened so much simply because I can't let it happen. Like I can't let it overtake my brain the way I used to let it happen. Like I used to be able to just like, well, life sucks. Fuck it. I'm literally just going to lay down for 2 days and fuck everything. Now it's like I have a person who depends on me, and I have a person who depends on me to not feel that way. And that I think is probably the more like
not feel that way though,
moment,
man. That's the
guess.
crazy thing. I don't know. I've caught myself just like staring blankly out of a window for long stretch. Like I'm getting a little. I shouldn't have read The Shining. I shouldn't have started quarantine by reading The Shining.
Bad idea.
That was a horrible idea. Horrible idea. But yeah, I'm starting to get a little spaced out like that. Like I just find myself doing weird shit. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's the big question, right? What are you reaching for? Like when it gets the absolute darkest, what's that fucking thing that will be the light in the storm? You know what I mean? What's your lighthouse thing that you reach for?
I mean, it's just. I mean, it's.
Do you have one thing, like one totem, where you're like, no matter what?
I mean, it's the kid, man. Like, I really don't see how.
I was talking about comics and shit, but that's cool. Get all fucking sappy and shit on me.
I mean, if we're gonna, I'll start with the.
I was gonna say
like
Child's Play, but I guess that's not cool anymore. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll start with the thing that's like the actual thing, because obviously, if my wife listens to this, she'll call me a monster.
I know you're so
like,
cool. You love your son.
Oh, it's actually my Jim Lee X-Men #1 copy that I absolutely adore. You know, like that'll be like
your wife knows you like that more than the kid. No.
You know, man, like as far like for comic stuff, like for me, it really is just like I need like you know what it is. It's one of our definitives. It's or one of our book club books, Kingdom Come, man. Like Kingdom Come is regularly one of the more like hopeful stories about like seeing through the darkness, because there's so much intrigue and there's so much back channeling and so much terrible shit that happens. But by the end of that book, there is just this like all the despair and all the horrific like lack of empathy that Superman starts to feel for humanity is replaced by, again, like the hopefulness that people will rise to the occasion of what Superman actually is. And that to me is like probably the thing that I love the most about that book, is after I read it, I always feel very inspired and very wonderful.
For sure. Yeah, I've actually been reaching for Hellblazer a lot, I've found.
Interesting.
Like, it's weird. I have a lot of Constantine I've read, but I have like this big stack of like trades I found that I just bought a bunch of them. And I never got to them. I don't know why. And I saw them on my shelf a day or two ago, and I was like, fuck, I'm reading all those, man.
Right.
And like I've been getting really into Constantine.
Okay. So
and there is this like laughing in the face of oblivionness of it that I found really cathartic right now. Like Constantine's just whole like, yeah, fuck it. And probably not the best attitude for a father of two and a husband, but there's something about Constantine like laughing in the face of it that has really meant a lot to me right now.
Right. Well, so in that spirit, I guess in that spirit, like when you're looking at your shelf, what's the next thing you're gonna read? Because at
It's
this
funny.
point,
I actually
like
went
we
through
got to
today
keep
and was
going.
picking out what am I reading? Yeah, I went through and I was picking out some stuff to read. What's my next big one I want to get to? I have a big run of the Max. I really want to get to that. There's kind of like a crazy 90s-ness to it it felt very warm to me when I picked it up today. I was like,
that is exactly
I
what
grabbed
the
that.
Max is,
I grabbed
man.
the Incals. I have a Howard the Duck book and a Monster of Frankenstein. I had like 4 or 5 things. I made a big. It's so funny you mentioned. I made like a big stack today, and I took it downstairs and out of my bedroom and I put it right on like the coffee table. And I was like, these are the ones. All of these are getting read. Like I have Scotty Young's Middle West on there.
Ooh, yeah, nice.
Yeah, I just got a bunch of like books. I was like, I don't know why, but these are calling my name. And I picked out like 14 books. I just have a big stack next to my coffee table now.
Nice, good. It's interesting because I was thinking the same thing. I was looking at my bookshelf and I'm like, I think because I'm home, I should just start at the beginning and like just reread everything. Because I'm sure I'll come across something. I'm like, oh, fuck, I never read this, but I bought it and I definitely filed it away and never read a fucking word of it. But that's exactly what it is like, I'm looking at my bookshelf and I'm like, there's got to be stuff in here that I don't remember or that I didn't read and need to like actually like. I know for a fact I did not read part 3 of Southern Bastards. So I know for a fact that I have to read it because I fucking loved 1 and 2. There's no reason for me not to read part 3. But like, yeah,
hey man,
like,
find those little things, guys. Find those little things.
Yeah, guys, find the small things. Find the little things that are going to bring you through the dark days ahead. It's just gonna, guys. It's gonna be rough, and just know that we're always here, and we're always podding, and we're always got fun things to talk to you guys about. So we hope you're doing okay. We hope that you're listening to this and having a better day than you might have had yesterday, or a better day than you might have had a couple of days ago. Read a great comic book; it'll make you feel good.
And also, I'm about to take the Birds of Prey plunge.
Are you really?
I will be bringing that to you.
Maybe I will too. You know what?
Yeah, we'll do that. Maybe that'll be next week. We'll take the Birds of Prey plunge.
Birds of Prey plunge.
I've heard nothing but good things. I don't know why I haven't done it. I'm excited.
I am too. All right, that's the next thing. Books and Birds of Prey, guys. Again, read a good book, watch a good movie, make yourself feel good, eat a cookie. Who knows? Whatever gets your rocks off at this point. As always, catch on your social media. We've been pretty active because we have nothing else to do.
True.
So hit us up with questions, anything you want. As always, thank you for watching us on YouTube. If you're watching us right now on Nerd Alchemist, we hope you're having a lovely day. From the Long Box Sessions, I'm Alex Dandino.
And I'm Josh Griffey.
Smile, guys. It'll be all right.